How does extremism relate to tradition? Well, you can look at American right-wing evangelicals and see how that works. And you can look at Jewish extremists and see how that works. Selective retrieval of the past. Selective retrieval. In other words, I go back into the Bible and everything that fits what I want, I take. And what doesn't fit, I leave. So we must be careful too not to be guilty of that. In other words, to go back into the Islamic tradition, which is rich, beautiful, life-giving, and which is the middle way. And then just take the bits and pieces that justify what I want, that preoccupation that I have. And in Islam, in this great tradition that we have, with these great scholars of the past and the present, whenever you take a bit or a piece and you focus on it only, what do we call that? Sectarianism. Sectarianism. That's firqa. That's firqa. And this was the nature of the Khawarij. Right? That they just take one part of the prophetic legacy, they insist upon it, and then they go outside of it. And there were others that did the same thing. But the extremist tends to do that. Extremism is a sickness. And it's very important that we protect ourselves from that. We've got work to do. We've got a community to build. We want justice. We want things to be right. But if we don't follow the footsteps of the Mustafa, of the chosen one, do you think you'll get there? I don't think so. We have to follow his path, don't we? We have to follow his path. We have to respect his teaching, his great legacy. And often, you'll find in the extremist the contention that we are returning to the true tenets of the religion. And you look through the extremists, look at the Jewish settlers in the West Bank, and see what they say. They are the true Jews. They are the ones who are following the Torah. They believe, no matter what other rabbis may say. Look at the Christian evangelicals in the United States. It's their way or no way. So they have the true tenets. And if we look in our own camp, we will see that we also have people among us who will say that this is the true way. These are the true tenets. This pamphlet I have, this newspaper article that I read, this CD that I listened to. And so this is another common characteristic. So there are also other qualities. Ahistorical view of the past, deep sense of immediate crisis. Some of these I'll skip because we don't have much time. But a deep sense of immediate crisis. Do you feel that way? Do you feel that there's a crisis right now? Well, do you? I do. And if I didn't, I think I'd be crazy, right? Yes, of course. We have an immediate crisis. Not one, we've got 1,000. But extremism focuses on that immediate sense of crisis, and it's like they can't let go of it. And, you know, you've got to step back, and you have to have sound leadership, and you have to be wise, and we have to go about things in the proper way. We live in a very complex world. And many of us are filled with anger. And I know that when I saw Lebanon blown off the face of the map, that I was filled with anger as you were filled with anger. Who wasn't who has any sense? Who wasn't who has any decency? But the Prophet said what? La taghdab. La taghdab. La taghdab. Don't lose your temper. Don't be angry. Don't be angry. That's prophetic wisdom. Don't be angry. Anger does nothing, right? Anger's from whom? Shaitan. Control yourself. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was in the worst of situations, like the Battle of the Trench, when it looked like the Muslims were going to be exterminated, was he angry? Was his face red with anger? He was ahlam ma yakun. He was completely halim, right? Completely at peace. Completely in control. And that is mastery. That is the way of the prophets. The Chinese are very intelligent people, very brilliant people. And, you know, there is a little booklet that you've probably heard of, very popular for people, even in business, called The Art of War by Sun Tzu. The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Brilliant. It's a little tiny book. What does he say about anger? He said, if you fight your enemy and you know that he is angry or quick to anger, you have defeated him from the start. Anger is defeat. Anger is defeat. You can never approach your problems from anger. Unless you want to be defeated. You must obey the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Use your intellect. Follow the way. Get rid of your anger. Take refuge in your Creator. Believe in our Creator. Right? So this is very important. The deep sense of immediate crisis, which often leads to extreme actions. Actions that defeat the purpose, that make the anger greater, that make the situation worse. Often, extremist groups have a problem with modernity. Evangelicals in America are like that. But they use technology. And they use it in a very sophisticated way. So it's strange, isn't it, that they may have an issue with the modern age, but they use technology. Now, I believe that there are three things that we have to consider. And I believe that to talk about extremism, especially in our house, especially among our people, there are three things that we have to consider. The first of them is problems, issues, grievances. That what is it that bothers us? What is it that bothers us? What are the problems that we have? And I say that comes first. Because extremism is not natural. Muslims are peaceful people. Muslims are people of the middle way. And if you look at war and violence over the last 400 years, who are the people that have perpetrated the vast majority of wars over the last 400 years? Muslims? No, not Muslims. Europeans and North Americans. The vast majority of wars, the most destructive wars of all, the most violent wars of all, have been done by other people than us. Okay? So, when we begin to behave in a way such as some of us do today, it's like, what's happened? I've been a Muslim for 36 years. I embraced Islam in 1970. Most of you weren't around in 1970. Some of you old graybeards were, like me. But when I became a Muslim in 1970, no one knew what Islam was.